He is the host and creator of one of my favorite shows, The Liar Show. He's also been featured on the Moth Podcast and the Moth Radio Hour. Please give it up for Andy Christie.
This is it was a Christmas Eve a long time ago. I was about 8. My brother Artie was about 12, and we were at my father's place on 14th Street here. And he's just given us our Christmas gifts. And I can tell before we open anything, this is not going to be the best Christmas ever. They're like freakishly uneven. I'm sitting there with a little kind of red and green striped foil package on my lap, and my brother Artie is literally walking around his present. It's like a wrapping paper mountain. It's like someone threw a Santa Claus tarp over a pony. You know, a pony like riding a new bicycle. And it's one of those like formless, sort of shapeless, non-cubic presents that says no simple geometry could describe the wonders inside, you know? So he tears it open, and it is an aquarium. It's like a 30 or 40 gallon fish tank. It's not just the tank, though. It's surrounded by all the shit. It's surrounded by, you know, the tubes and the filters and the pumps and the lights and the rainbow-colored gravel and like the, you know, the skin divers with the bubbly, all that stuff. So it's surrounded by this just mountain of just like incredibly beautiful stuff. Everything but the fish. I open mine and it is a book. Looks like a textbook. It's got like a plain black cover on it. It's a little scuffed up. And I open it up to read it, and I can't because it's in Italian. I'm not Italian. And it is filled with the most amazingly detailed illustrations of the most amazingly disturbing images I've seen on my 8 years on the planet. There are like devils with giant bat wings flying around, swinging severed human heads by the hair. There are men and women eating each other. There are men and women doing things to each other I don't understand at 8 years old. And everybody is naked. It's not the Hardy Boys. It's not, you know, even in color, you know. But my father knew that I liked books, especially books with pictures. So even if he gave me a book filled, you know, a book I couldn't read, filled with pictures I couldn't bear to look at. Like, forget about understanding the words. I didn't even understand the pictures, you know. Even if he did that, I know he put some you know, thought into it. But I, like you, judged my gifts based on mass and value alone. So I burst into tears. We knew, my brother and Artie and I both knew where these things came from. We knew they came from Emil, who was a guy who lived upstairs in Dad's building. It was a single men's rooming house that he ran on 14th Street between 7th and 8th Avenue. He moved there and became super of the building after the divorce. My mother and father met right at the end of World War II in Austria. They got married, they moved to America, they had some kids, and they got divorced. I remember asking Dad why they split up once, and he said, well, you know, people change. And I asked my mother the same question, and she said, because people never change. It was a teaching moment for a kid, you know? I think what happened is after the war, once the Nazis were out of the picture, they finally had time to take a good look at each other, you know? So anyway, after the divorce, Dad moved to Manhattan. We spent weekdays in Queens with Mom, weekends with Dad in his single men's rooming house where he was the super. And we used to help him work there. Every Saturday morning, he would have to make the rounds around the whole building to kind of like pick up the old soiled sheets and pillowcases, linens, he called them, as if it were like Buckingham Palace. pick up the old sheets and pillowcases and deliver new stuff, you know. And so we helped him do that. We go up and down. It was like 8 floors in the building. And these sheets were not like sheets in an Ivory Snow commercial, you know. This was a single men's rooming house. They were kind of amber colored. And they had even darker amber blotches in them that could have been, you know, nicotine or whiskey or, let me just say, Dad didn't let me play ghost with these things. So we would go make our way up from the 1st floor up to the 8th floor, knocking on doors. The guy would open the door. We'd go in, we'd pick up the soiled sheets, stick them in a pillowcase, leave off the fresh stuff, and go to the next door. And every once in a while, we'd get to a door, knock on it, and nobody was in. We'd knock again, no answer. And then Dad would pull out his master key, this kind of skeleton key that would open any door in the building. And he would open it up, and every once in a while he would find somebody in there, but dead. Not like shot through the head or like hanging from a steam pipe, just kind of like worn all the way down to nothing, you know? And then Dad would sort of do this to me and my brother, like a school crossing guard, kind of. And he was one of those dads who was full of like aphorisms, you know, like, you know, save your pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves, you know, never give up. In this situation, he would say something like, well, at least, you know, he lived a full, rich life. Even at 8 years old, I knew that you had not lived a full, rich life if you wound up in Dad's shithole of a place. Then he would send us back down to his apartment in the building and to wait, and he would go into the apartment and he would call the precinct and he would report the latest vacancy. And while he waited, he would kind of poke around and do a little shopping with a pillowcase. And a little while later, he'd come back downstairs with a pillowcase full of all kinds of stuff that would wind up under our Christmas tree, around a birthday cake. These were not the kind of guys who collected, you know, yo-yos and water pistols. So not all the presents were particularly kid-friendly. To wit, this Italian textbook full of dirty pictures. Anyway, so now I am standing there and I'm sobbing, snot's coming out of my nose. Because this is so just unfair. I'm looking at my book, I'm looking at Artie's like SeaWorld over there. and he's like blowing into one end of one of the filter pump, you know, tubes, and he's got the other end in his ear. You know, he could care less about getting a fish tank. I think he wanted a BB gun, you know. But I'm sobbing and I want to make a trade, right? I know it's gonna hurt Dad's feelings, but I figure I'm a kid, I can get away with it. And he picks up my book and starts flipping through it, and because he's older, he's more mature, and because it's full of like naked women, he says, I'll do it. And we make the trade, and like everybody's happy. I'm happy. Maybe not Dad. And maybe not the 3 fish that I bought the next day, because as I remember, they lived a short, hungry life. You know, they could probably see that little box of fish food right through the glass of their aquarium, if they could see through all the algae on the side of the aquarium. So within like a month or so, my tank is like in a garbage can out in front of the building, but Artie has taken really good care of the book. As a matter of fact, he keeps it under his mattress to take good care of it. So quite a while later, my father passed away in the old building, and Artie and I went back to clear out the old stuff. And we both left with boxes of junk that was there. My box was filled with litter, essentially. Just broken pieces of wood and plastic and garbage. Artie's had his book in it. It was still there. A little while later, I get a phone call a couple of days later, and it's my brother. And he says, you ever hear of this Italian artist, Gustave Doré? And I had gone to art school by this time. and I do not want to hear what the whole rest of this conversation is going to be. I say, yeah, why? He says, ever hear of Dante's Inferno? Turns out that the old dirty book from Dad's old room in this place was an 1863 edition of Gustave Doré's illustrated masterpiece, Dante's Divine Comedy. It's what book people call a first impression with plates. And it's worth a lot more than 3 dead goldfish. And I'm on the phone, and I'm getting weepy. And I think, but that's my book. And I'm kind of back there again, really on the verge of tears. And I want to cry, but I know, like, I'm a man now. Crying is not going to get this thing back. But I know patience will. Because my brother is even older than I am. And like Dad always said, nobody lives forever. That's my story.
Yum's the word